Good morning, everyone. It's Kristen from the Creative Space. I'm jumping on a little bit early. I know I said I was going to paint this at 10 o'clock, but I realized my to-do list was getting longer and longer. So I thought I'd just get on a couple minutes early. But you'll definitely be able to watch the replay anyway. So if you missed the beginning of it, you'll be able to go back and watch it after I'm finished. Okay, so I'm going to be painting this stacked pumpkin door hanger. It is this nice 1/4 inch thick MDF board, and this is what it looks like before I drew the pumpkins on there. So this could also be a snowman, and I've done it before where I painted the pumpkin on one side and the snowman on the other side. So it's kind of like a reversible door hanger. So the first thing I do even before I draw the design, is I prime it with white acrylic paint. And I just take a roller and I roll it on there. It doesn't have to be perfectly even, although this did come out pretty good, but the wood soaks up the paint so quickly. It takes a lot of paint, and so it just seems like you're using a lot of paint when you're painting it. So if you put the primer on first, it's actually a whole lot better. Okay, so I'm just gonna be going along and painting it. If you wanna know the exact colors I use, you can DM me. Or also, if you're in the local area and after you watch this, you wanna paint one of these for yourself, because I'm not doing these in a paint party this year. I do have about 4 of these left over that I could prime and trace the design for you. So if you're interested in that and you can pick up the kit, then you can DM me about that too. Okay, so let's get started. So I like to start at the top with the lightest color, just because it just makes sense to me to go from light to medium to your darkest color. So as you're getting your brush dirty, you know, it seems better to me. So I'm going to use my 1-inch flat brush to get started, because I do want to cover large areas. Let's see, I think I'm going to turn this a little bit. What do you think about this background? It's kind of busy, huh? I was looking, it's actually wrapping paper. I used to have this really cute buffalo plaid wrapping paper that I used for my background, but I think I used it all up. So then I've just been painting on my table, and I realized the other day I had little paint splotches all over my table that I probably can get off with like a magic eraser or something. So I'm grabbing white and a cream on the brush at the same time. I kind of don't want it to be just pure white. And I'm going to start off just following the contours of my pumpkin. So what I mean by that is I am making my brush strokes curve with the shape of the pumpkin. And as I need more paint, I'll grab more as I go. I am trying to cover the wood, so you want to make sure you're really getting that covered. But then at some point, you might want to just grab a little bit more. I would grab more white, because the cream really shows a lot. I think it does anyway. The cream I use kind of shows a lot, so I like to get more white. I'm going to add a little bit of the mint green to this later. Now, right here is the stem. So, you know what, I have it sideways, but this is the stem, and this is a little bit of pumpkin showing. So I'm going to paint some of that with this color too, but I'm going to try and leave myself the idea of that line so that I remember to put a little bit of a low light there when I'm done with this color. So yeah, because this is round and it doesn't have that cutout for the stem, I kind of had to put the stem in a little bit and then paint some of the pumpkin behind the stem, but it looks good after it's all done and you've outlined everything. You can tell what it is, and it really does look kind of cute. So I'm trying to get around this stem here, but I'm not too worried if I get a little bit of this paint on the stem, because the other color will cover over it. Okay, so I like this brush because you can use it 2 ways. You can use it the flat way and cover a lot of area, or you can kind of hold it upright and outline things. And then the more you hold it upright, you know, you can kind of change, like right here, I'm trying to get into a small space, so I'm going to hold it upright. And then over here, I want to cover a bit more so I can hold it more flat. So I do like this brush for that reason. It's super versatile like that. As the paint dries, you're going to notice if you missed any spots, so then you can go back and add some more paint. So I'm not going to worry about that right now because I am going to add mint green for some highlights after I paint this middle one mint green. So I'm just going back and forth and grabbing white and cream on my brush. I'm trying to paint around the leaf. I'm trying to paint around the stem. Can't forget this little spot up here that is the back part of the pumpkin behind the stem. It'll make more sense once we get the stem done, but hopefully you can kind of see that. I love this. First of all, I love fall. I mean, if you're watching me right now, like, do you love fall? Is fall your favorite, or do you have another favorite season? I mean, one thing I love about living in Rhode Island and New England is you get all the seasons, but fall is just my favorite. All right, so I've got a first coat on here. I am definitely going to go back in and add a little bit more in a bit, but I'm going to move on to my mint pumpkin. Once this dries, you'll be able to see if it needs more. Okay, so now we're going to move on to that middle pumpkin. So I'll turn it like this. And the reason why the direction of the brush strokes is so important is because you kind of want them to show, especially with your lowlights and your highlights. So that really helps to make this look like a rounded object. If you've got your brush strokes showing, you can see the direction that they're going in, and it just gives you the hint of the idea that this is a rounded object. Put a little bit of cream down here. And then I'll put a little bit more white up here. So in some places I want the two colors to blend, but in other places I want it to just kind of show as two different colors. And there's not really a rhyme or reason to that necessarily, but you know, it kind of the idea that you might have it a little darker towards the bottom and then a little lighter towards the top. Now, I'm not going to rinse my brush because all it has on it is cream and white, and that will mix nice with the mint color. So I'm just not going to wash my brush right now. If I had way too much, I'll put my coffee over there. If I had way too much paint on my brush, instead of washing it, I'll just wipe it on a paper towel. All right, so now I'm going to grab the mint green color. And I like to get it on both sides of the brush like this. So you don't want the paint coming all the way up to your metal. You just want to get it on both sides of the brush so that you can use one side and then flip it over and use what's on the other side. Just goes a little bit longer. And see, now that I have put that primer on here, this coats so much better. That one coat of primer makes all the difference. Okay, so I'm just putting on one coat of this mint green, and then try to get into all the little spots, make sure there's no wood showing. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of white with mint green still on my brush and come across the top and pull down and let there be a highlight, just like that. And I'm going to do that for the other sections now. And that was the easy section because there's nothing blocking. Here we've got to deal with the leaf right here and the stem down there. So I'm just going around it and then pulling down and change the direction that I'm holding the brush so I can get into this small space down here. Now I'm running out of paint, so I'm going to just get a little bit more. So I just get a little more as I go. Can always get more. You don't want your paint to be globby. Even if you think you're gonna need a second coat of paint, you don't want your paint to be globby because it'll take forever to dry, and then, you know, it's just not, it's not ideal if your paint's globby. You might think like, oh, I'm just putting like a ton of paint on all at once, but it dries uneven. You have to wait for it to dry before you can go back in and do any blending or outlining. So it's just better if you put it on smooth and even and then go back and add another coat. So I don't want to lose this line right here, but if I do, I can kind of guesstimate where it belongs. You'll see what we're going to do for a little outlining later. So I'm just taking a little bit of white and putting some right here in the top middle part. I'll go back to this side over here. I'm kind of cleaning up that edge, but we are going to outline that a little bit, so it's okay if it's not 100% clean where the mint meets the cream pumpkin. So I can't really see if anybody's leaving any comments, so I might peek in a minute and see if there's anybody, but sometimes I just kind of get into what I'm doing. So if you do have a comment or a question, I'll look at it later, so feel free to leave the comment. Or like I said, you can always DM me if you want to know the colors I used, or if you're local and you're interested in getting one of these woodcuts, because I think I have like 4 left that I could prime and trace for you, and then you could just follow along with the video and paint your own, because I'm not doing this as a paint party this year. Mostly I'm doing ceramics this year, and they've been super popular. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Now that I have some, before I go to orange, okay, because orange is a really much different color than these two colors here, and I do want to get a little bit of this mint color up there. I'm going to wipe some off because I do have quite a bit on my brush, but then I'm going to grab a little bit of white and put some more white down. And then while that's kind of wet, I'm going to grab a tiny bit of mint and swipe some mint in there. There, and kind of leave that. I like the way that looks. So I'll do the same thing on the other side. Add a little bit of white. I realized that when I sit here, a lot of times I'll do lives later in the afternoon, but the sun comes right through the window on my right over here, and it makes this weird shadow. I was trying to do something about that with another light source, but I don't know if it's helping. So there's no right way to do this except that you want to have your brush strokes move in the direction of your object. So that side's got a little bit more mint and this side is a little bit whiter, and I like that both, so I'm gonna leave it. I'm actually gonna put a little bit more cream back here so it's a little tiny bit darker in the back. I have a little bit of mint on my brush now, so I'm just kind of adding it. Okay, so I like that. Now I'm gonna get a little bit of cream and put some cream into the mint one. So I'm just trying to get a little bit of both colors so they kind of go together. I'm actually gonna put a little bit of orange into each one too, but not too much because that's pretty bold. Okay. So now I'm going to rinse my brush because I need to get all those colors off before I do the orange. I'll just put that over there for a second. Let's take a peek. See who's watching. Hi Ann, hi Kathy. So anyway, back to what I was doing. All right, so I'm drying my brush off. I'm rinsing it and I'm drying it, and as you're doing that, try not to splatter on your woodcut, because if you leave spots with the water, It's actually kind of hard to come back from. I mean, you can, but it just takes a while because it has to dry and you have to put another coat on. So you're just gonna be careful when you're washing your brush that you don't make little drips across. All right, so now I'm gonna grab my orange. And again, I'm gonna outline right here and then start pulling down in the direction of the object. So this is a bigger section. It's gonna need more paint. It's gonna need bigger brush strokes. By that I mean I'm like really moving my arm around like this instead of, it's not just like this with little brush strokes. You kind of wanna sweep it across to get one nice big sweeping brush stroke here. All right, I'm gonna go around my leaf. It's funny that orange, you think it's a darker color, and it is a darker color, obviously, but it's always more transparent than white and cream. So I'm definitely gonna need a second coat just on the orange, but we'll let that dry while we work on the other sections. So I'm gonna come on in here and I'm using this brush upright to get in that little space right there. And then I can outline my leaves like that. And now that I have this bigger area down here, I can use the brush the wide way. So that's what I mean when I said this brush is really versatile, because it's really great for edging something out and then covering a bigger area. And then you just have to be careful because over here I need to edge out my leaf again. If I get a little bit of orange on my leaf or I change the shape of my leaf a little bit, it's no big deal. Nobody says that. The leaf has to be that shape. You can make it a little different. Okay, so down here at the bottom of the pumpkin, this is kind of like the top part where the stem, I had to squish it into the shape. So down here, I don't want my pumpkin to appear flat. So later on, I'm gonna do a little bit of outlining here. So this little spot down here and this little spot down here will be like black or brown, but it doesn't really matter. If you did make your pumpkin flat, it's no big deal. You can change the shape of that. But I just like to give it a little contour at the bottom. You'll see what I mean when I do that. So I'm just finishing off the pumpkin on this side with the first coat, and then we're gonna go back and add a second coat because it's not dry, but it's dry enough that we'll be able to add a second coat. As long as you put the paint on thin. You don't want it globby. So if it looks a little globby, you smooth it out. It's like if you were painting your wall, you don't want to put the paint on thick in some spots and thin in other spots. You want it to be all even. So again, I'm trying to, I'll remember where my sections are here, and you can kind of see the pencil line a little bit. But if you forgot or if you lose it, you can kind of just make it up. All right, so I'm gonna come back to this side now. I'm gonna put some more orange down. And then we're gonna do a little bit of yellow for some highlights. Okay, so I'm grabbing some orange, sweeping that on there to give it another coat. See, the second coat really makes it look a lot nicer. And then I'm gonna grab a tiny bit of yellow without washing my brush. And just like I did with the white and the mint up there, sweep in a little bit of yellow. And don't sweep it away because you kind of want, I'm gonna spill coffee on this. You kind of want some bright spots and some more blended spots. It adds some really nice highlights. Just like that. Oh, I like that spot right there. Sometimes you get these spots and you're like, okay, don't blend that away. All right, so I'm gonna grab some more orange and do another coat in the middle. Okay, and then I'll grab some yellow and do some highlights. Now this gets a tiny bit tricky because you got to work around the leaves, but if you get a little bit on the leaves, once it's dry, we'll be able to cover it. And I'm going to do my last little section over here. And then grab some yellow and do a highlight. Now when I grab the yellow here, I'm kind of dipping the corner of my brush in as opposed to the whole flat part, because I am using just the corner to get that highlight. All right, so things are starting to come together. Obviously it needs a lot of outlining to define the pumpkins, but we're gonna start to work on the leaves and the stems. So I have two browns for the leaves. I get a medium, kind of a redder brown and a darker brown. And I am going to use my 1/2" flat brush for the stems. I really like the flat brushes. I'm gonna grab both browns to start. I really like the flat brushes for doing things like this because, again, you can use it to help you edge out your shape and then change how you hold the brush to help you edge out, and then you can pull the paint down. And just like the orange, the brown is a thin color. It's funny that the darker color, red's like that too, and so is purple. It's funny that a lot of the darker colors are actually transparent in paint. So it's gonna need a couple of coats. If you don't like using this brush, you can use the medium round brush, but same kind of thing. Like I'll show that one on the other one up here. So I'm gonna grab both colors. So I want to outline it, so I'm not going to just go along the edge. I'm going to put my brush on an angle like this so that only the tip of it's facing the edge, and then pull the tip of the brush along the edge, and then change direction. So I want to get in that little spot there, that little corner. I'll change how I'm holding the brush. And then in the middle, you can be a little less careful. You want your brush strokes to go in the direction of the stem. And if I get a little brown into where my leaves are going to be, that's okay. I'm going to turn this upside down so I can get the stem down here. So this one's a little bit easier because I can just go right off of the wood cut. So I definitely want to put a second coat on this. This looks way too thin. I'm going to change how I'm holding the brush so I can get in that little spot right there. And then just pull that along the edge, like that. All right, so now you can kind of see how that's a pumpkin stem. A little bit better than before. Okay, so that's already dry enough. So I'm actually going to grab the lighter color. I'll do a little bit of the darker color for low lights or shadows. So right now I'm just gonna take the darker color, the lighter color. It's like a burnt sienna. And go in and paint this. Now I just noticed something. I got a little teeny weeny speck of yellow right there. And I'm not even gonna worry about it. I'm just gonna leave it there. I might cover it up with a detail later, or maybe not, but it's okay. We'll just add a cute little, somebody's gonna think I meant to do that. Okay, so I'm just taking the burnt sienna color right now. We'll go back in and add some more details in a bit. All right, now we're gonna start painting the leaves. So we're kind of letting all the pumpkin stuff dry. So I have two kinds of greens. I've got a really dark green and kind of a lighter, more muted green. Oops. There. So I've got a really dark green and a lighter green. So I'm gonna take that round brush I was using, clean all the brown off, and then dry it on a paper towel. And I'm going to take my dark green. When I load up the brush, I kind of roll the brush in the paint a little bit. Helps the bristles come together. All right, and then I'm going to just start down here near the point. And put some green. I kind of like offload all the paint in the middle of the shape, and then I push the paint to the edge there. Now I want to make sure that my brush strokes are coming in the direction of the leaf. That's going to help with details later. So I just keep grabbing more paint as I need it. And make sure that your brush strokes kind of come towards the center. Like, remember, there's like a vein down the middle of the leaf, and everything kind of moves towards that. So that's kind of what I'm doing with my brush strokes. Everything's moving towards the center and that way. We are going to do a little bit of outlining in black. So things are going to get defined once that happens. But right now we're just getting the base color on here. And if you notice that you have any brush strokes going in a direction that you don't want them to be, then go back in and fix it once you get your color on there. So I kind of talk about it like it's like frosting a cake, because, you know, at first you put the frosting on the cake, you just got to get the frosting on there. And then you go back in with your knife and you like finesse the the frosting and make it look nice. It's kind of the same kind of idea. So right now I'm just trying to get my paint on here. I'll kind of define my shape here. Make sure you go over the orange a little bit so that you don't have any weird white spots. I'm gonna turn this a little bit this way. I like to have the point of the paintbrush facing away from me if I can, so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do one coat of this dark color on all the leaves, and then we're gonna go back and add a little bit of the lighter color for some highlights. Now you can always go in with your smaller brush too. You don't have to use the brushes I'm using, because I have a smaller brush. I really wanted to use this to get into the small places. I could. I'm focusing right now. Sorry, I'm not talking. Concentrating. I don't know what happened to the little thing over here. I must have forgot to draw it. There, that's better. Okay, we're gonna do this last leaf at the top here with the dark color. So you can kind of see how I use just the tip of the brush here, and then as I get closer to the middle, I push the brush down. So I'm really getting all the bristles flat. That helps to cover more ground with the paint, but also gives you the brush strokes going in the direction you need to. So you just don't want to push all your bristles flat in the corners here. Get the little fine detail areas. But out here, you can push it down flat and get more covered at once. All right, now we'll go back to the beginning, to the first leaves we did, and start to add some highlights. So I'm gonna take more of the dark green, and I like to go back in and add kind of another light coat. It doesn't have to be really thick and like completely thorough. You can leave some areas around the edges without getting a second coat. And then grab some of the lighter color and go in and around the top part of the leaf, add some highlight strokes. And I don't blend it in that much. I leave a lot of the bright green showing, but I do kind of want to have it end somewhere along the halfway point. It doesn't have to be this perfect line either, because we're going to put a swipe of black down the middle, but somewhere along the halfway point, and you can see how that edge is not straight, it curves with the curve of the leaf. So I'm taking some of the dark green. I think I need a little bit more dark green actually. All right, so I'm taking some of the dark green and I'm going along the bottom. I'm actually kind of giving the whole thing a second coat of dark green, but not really thorough. Just to wet the surface so that so it adds a little bit more darker color at the bottom, and then when I get the lighter color for the top, it blends because I'm not painting on top of dry paint. Now I get a lot of that lighter color on here, so I'm just gonna wipe it on my napkin, grab some darker, that way I can blend that out. So I'm gonna do that to the other two leaves. I'm gonna grab some dark and do another coat. I still think that leaf looks funny. I don't know what I did to it. It'll probably be fine when I'm done. And then grab some of the lighter. Go along the top edge. Okay, so you gotta remember everything comes together at the end when we do the final details. So I'm washing that green off my brush right now, and I'm gonna go back into the stems. I'm gonna add a little bit of the darker brown. So now I'm just getting the darker brown, and kind of at the bottom of the stems, I'm just gonna pull up some of that darker brown. And it doesn't have to be, don't coat it completely. I want to leave some of the lighter brown peeking through. So the darker brown's given me some shadow. We're going to do a little black detail in there too, so that'll give us some shadow too. Okay, so I'm just, nothing really specific, but I am starting at the bottom of the stem and just pulling upward, leaving some of the lighter color. I actually want to get a little bit of the lighter color on there, so I'll come from the top downward. All right, I don't know what my problem is, but, oh good, that's dry. Okay. All right, now is the time that everybody likes, which is, I'm being sarcastic there, is starting to do a little outlining, because outlining can be a little bit tedious, but I kind of like it, because it really makes everything come together. So for starters, I'm using my small brush, and I'm going to use my brown, my dark brown, and I'm going to roll the bristles in the paint so they all come together like a point. Now the trick of this is to hold your brush upright so that you're just dragging the tip of the bristles along when you're making the line, and you're not pushing the bristles all the way down, because when you do that you get a really fat line. So think about it like a ballerina on point shoes, and she doesn't want to go flat-footed. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and re-outline those areas where the different sections of the pumpkins were. And I love doing this because I like to have these like thick and thin lines. It can be a little shaky because pumpkins are an organic shape, so they don't have to be smooth. They shouldn't look smooth. They should look bumpy. And if you have a wiggly line, it helps them to look bumpy. So I'm just going to go in here and paint these little sections down here in. This is going to help the bottom of the pumpkin kind of show, so it's not flat. We'll do a little outlining there in a bit, but right now I'm just coming in and outlining the intersections of the pumpkins. Oh, I gotta twirl my paint in the brush there. So you want to hold the brush upright and drag the tip along. And if you can't do it in one motion, which I never do, I kind of stop. I'll start and then stop and then start back up again. I'm going to turn this upside down so I can reach that part better. So I'm using that dark brown color. And I can't forget to do these little areas back here, because that is where the back of the pumpkin shows a little bit because of the stem. Okay, see, starting to look like pumpkins now. All right. Now, before we go into black, because black's gonna make my brushes and my water kind of messy, I'm gonna add some highlight strokes to the pumpkins. So I'm gonna grab some of my mint color and just really lightly in the direction of the contours, just add a couple of little strokes. in the orange and in the white. Put some back here. Actually, you know what? I noticed a little spot I missed with the brown. Oops, too much water. You don't want water on your brush. It gets too puddly. There we go. Oh, you know what else I didn't do? I'm just skipping around here. I want to add a little contour line, a little outline right here, where one pumpkin color meets the other pumpkin color. With brown. There. That's better. Okay. And then I'm going to take some orange and go in and add a little bit of orange. To each one, not a lot, just to bring in a little bit of the color. And then I'm going to add some white and bring in a little bit of white. To each one. We're going to do this with gold in a bit too. I'm also going to add a little bit of white to my leaf, just kind of along the tops of the leaves. And a little bit to my stems. All right. Now for the black. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do with the black is go in and outline my stems. Make sure there's no water on there. So I'm using my small brush, my small detail brush, and I want to gently, carefully outline the stems. Maybe even add a couple of low light strokes in there. I'm going to outline my leaf too. It's okay if the lines get a little bit thicker here, but I still like to keep them kind of thin in most areas. A lot of times the line isn't even complete, and I think that looks really nice. I'm going to put a little stroke down the middle there. That one got kind of thick, but I kind of like that. Every time I paint one of these, it comes out different, which I think is something important to think about. We're not machines, so everything comes out a little different every time. All right, I could do the stem and the leaves down here. I'm going to kind of wiggle the line up here so it makes it look like the stem's a little bumpy on top. See, so I am pushing down a little bit more than I was here, just to make this line a bit more bold, but not too much. And it's always good to like practice on a plate or something if you're not too confident with making the outlining. Practice on a piece of paper or a plate, just getting different, using different pressures, pushing down on the bristles and seeing what you get. Okay, now I am going to add a little bit of black down in here. And what I like to do is kind of outline the whole thing with black. But again, it doesn't need to be this perfectly even line. So I'm gonna just come along the outside edge here, but in some areas my lines are thicker and in some areas they go off the shape a little bit more. Even down here, a little orange shows, and I like that. I'm gonna leave that like that. So I'm just kind of defining the whole shape with this outline and black. I think it's kind of a less is more kind of thing anyway. Like, you can always add more if you want to. So it's better to be a little bit sparing with it, and then you can go back and add more. If you want, right there. All right, I'm gonna do some fun details. So I like to take my brush and on the inside of the pumpkin. So now we just outlined everything there, but on the inside, add another little row. Oh, that's got too much water on it. When it starts to make a puddle, you know you have too much water on your brush. Okay, so I'm gonna roll the paint in roll the bristles in the paint and outline to the inside just a little bit. And also take the back end of my paintbrush, put some little dots in because it looks really cute. Look how cute that is. Just for nothing more than fun little detail. You can even do it coming down inside a little bit if you wanted to add some dots in there. I think it's cute. So I'm kind of skipping a little bit so I have a place to put the dots. Like right there. And over here. And maybe right there. Oh, that was a big one. That's okay. All right, to the top. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna put a little dot down here. So I'm using this mint green, but on my first one, I used one that was more turquoise. And I think that looks pretty too. blue and orange look nice together because they are opposite colors on the color wheel, so they really kind of make each other stand out. So really, any kind of combination of blue and orange are going to look good. All right, now, last but not least, I like to take some gold. This is 24 karat gold, extreme sheen. And I like to take some of that and throw some in. Oops, it's got black on it. We don't want black in our gold. Add some for some highlights in the leaves and on the pumpkins, and maybe even a little bit on the stems. Now, the other thing I did is put these woodcut words in here. I can get a little bit carried away with the gold. Ooh, that's my coffee pot. I like the gold. And I also like, see if I can actually need some more white. I like to take some white dots and put it at the base of the stem and the base of the leaves. But you need clean paint to make, you need new paint to make good dots, because otherwise the paint's been sitting around for a bit. It gets kind of gummy. So I got new paint, so it'll make nice little dots. How cute is that? I like to do 1, 2, 3, and they gradually get smaller. 1, 2, 3. Ta-da! Okay, so then I don't know what I'm going to do yet. Maybe you guys can help me out. Tell me your preference. So on the first one that I did, I have these little woodcut words. This one says hello. So I would paint this black and maybe put some gold glitter on it or something, and then glue it in later. It's way easier than trying to script out the words and then you mess up your pumpkin. So I have hello. I have one that says home, which is kind of cute. You can put it like off to the side like that, maybe, or straight across like that. And then this one says hello fall. It's kind of a little bit bigger, so this might be too big for this. What do you think about that? I mean, remember, I'm gonna paint it black, so it would probably show up a bit more. Maybe if I had painted the pumpkin down the bottom a lighter color and put the orange in the middle, maybe make the bottom pumpkin turquoise and the middle pumpkin orange, then this would show up better. But anyway, at any rate, that's how you paint the stacked pumpkin. Let me know what you think about which word I should put in there. Leave a comment if you want to give me your opinion. And if you want to know what colors I use, or you are local and want to get one of these woodcuts that I have, just send me a DM, and have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.